Welcome back, everyone, to Pontos Fathom Press. This is the Pontos Fathom podcast, episode number 79. We're jumping into H.P. Lovecraft's Dream Cycle. Mostly, this is around a new project we've got. It's the Alchemical Courtship of the Dreamlands. First volume of this is getting worked on. We've got volumes 2 and 3. Also in the pipeline. This one is probably going to go to publication first, but lots of Lovecraftian themes here, so we kind of wanted to use Lovecraft's dream cycle. I've got tons of sections of this complete unabridged H.P. Lovecraft to go through some of those big works from Lovecraft. So as you guys know, there's lots of people know Lovecraft through the Cthulhu mythos kind of angle, but there's also this Dreamlands angle. And Lovecraft wrote a lot of shorter pieces with features of that, and we'll kind of go through some of those features. And a lot of them play a part in Malmesfield Llewellyn's Saga, and this is the first 3 volumes of that: Aim, Aimless, Aim Vicious, Hope's Home, Hysteria's Heart, and Stubborn Devotions, Inventing and Forgiving. The concept here is, just like in Lovecraft's Dreamlands, there are a whole other world inside of the Dreamlands. I think there's a short story. I always remember reading a short story about the. Let's just go into kind of the world building of it, as we often do here. The idea of dreams are not just a place where our subconscious works out things from the day, and actually those get termed in a kind of Jungian alchemical way with the vestibules of the Dreamlands. What dreams are is almost the opening up into another kingdom, and that's what you really see in the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, things like that. So I've got to apologize. I haven't been around for a couple months. I've had some YouTube issues a bit where there's my channel taken down and had to get the channel put back up for reasons I still don't know. I'm also in the process of moving more content over to Rumble, just in case it's a backup. As you guys know, there's a lot of work that goes into this channel and also my hobbies channel. I've got over 1,000 videos on that channel, and this is our 79th podcast here. So it's been a bit of a setback there. But I've also been busy with a lot of projects. We've been editing we've been re-editing and working on the artwork for these. I'll feature these books here. But I also wanted to show, before we jump into this, I wanted to show you some of the other projects that I might have coming up. I know it's been probably a month since we've talked, so I wanted to catch everyone up on some interesting things. One thing, and these are upcoming shows too, so just so you guys can see, I picked up the Peter Sloterdijk Spherology series, and I've been reading the first book of this. So he's got bubbles, he's got globes, and foams. So this is a very interesting book. I've been really diving deep into bubbles. I'm about a third of the way through. Very thick tomes, but the kind of idea here is everything that we experience is sort of the bubble of our, let's call it our extended environment, our culture, our language. There all can be our mutual relationships. Once we have a mutual relationship, we sort of form a bubble around that. And that is in contrast to things like a globe, which is like a top-down global version of that. So say the religion is global, but our participation in it together is the bubble. And I think the trend moving toward foam is, as the new generation, as we start to see less and less trust in religions and nations and some of those larger global ideas, we start to see that there's more of the individual bubble structure starts to form as foams. So this is my hot take on it. But I'm only a third through the first book, but look forward to some deep dives into this in the future. I also have been looking at Black Myth Wukong being so popular. I picked up the Journey to the West. This is Anthony Yu's Journey to the West. I've been making my way through Journey to the West and sort of learning about the original Wukong Monkey King style mythology here. Super fascinating stuff. So I'm planning to do some deep dive into that. Then on a lighter note, I picked up some Gatchaman that I've been reading, watching. And then also in the sort of I like the fringe books as well as how we produce those kind of books. But I've got here Robert Seffer's 1666 Redemption Through Sin. And this interesting book by John Levy and David Edward called Evidence of the Old World. It's kind of a Tartaria send up about looking at the history of construction of cities and noticing that architectural styles and timelines don't necessarily match up with the way we've been told history. So it's kind of like a skeptic's view of historical revisionism. Robert Seffer, 1666, a smaller book here, but this is, you guys know Robert Seffer. This is all around a Sabbatai Zevi. So some interesting stuff there. But look forward to these if you're interested. We'll be going down these rabbit holes in future podcasts. Let's jump into our Lovecraft deep dive. So I went kind of through and I found a bunch of research for today, and I also found some correspondences in the editing work that we're doing for the Alchemical Courtship of the Dreamland series. So maybe we'll start out with Lovecraft and talk about his dream cycle. If you just go through this table of contents, a number of Lovecraft's stories take place in the Dreamlands. So, for example, we have Dagon, just going beyond the Wall of Sleep, the Doom that came to Sarnath, the White Ship, the Cats of Ulthor, Celephais, the Quest of Iranon, I believe, too. Obviously, the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, and lots more. So there's a lot here. Hypnos, I believe I see Hypnos in here. Hypnos. So what we have in Lovecraft is a loose connection of these stories, and they say that they're like, if you look at these, this is an edition, a Barnes and Noble edition of the complete and unabridged fiction of Lovecraft. This is the one I have. There's so many collections of this. It's like a finite set of Lovecraft works, but if you go to any bookstore, there's 100 books of Lovecraft. They're all the same content, just various different kind of collections. But what's nice about this one is there are some little quick editorial notes here. So, like, for example, in The Cats of Ulthor, a short story written in June 1920 is perhaps Lovecraft's most delightful tribute to his beloved Felidae. Lovecraft outlined the basic plot of the story in a letter. It features several borrowings from the works of Lord Dunsany. So all of these works have this Lord Dunsany kind of homage on Lovecraft's part. So what's the Cats of Ulthor? Cats of Ulthor is, it is said that in Ulthor, which lies beyond the river Skye, no man may kill a cat, and this I can verily believe as I gaze upon him who sitteth purring beneath the fire. For the cat is cryptic and close to strange things that men cannot see. He is the soul of ancient Egyptus, the bearer of tales from forgotten cities in Moreo and Ophir. He is the kin of the jungle's lords, the heir to the secrets of the Uri and Sinister, the Sphinx and his cousin. He speaks to her language. In Ulthor, before the burgesses forbade the killing of cats, there dwelt an old cotter. And it just kind of goes on like this. But the idea here is Ulthor is a city of only cats, and it's part of the Dreamlands. And if you look at the flagship sort of novella of this tale, I lost my bookmark here already. We'll move this one out, something like that. We can look right to Celephais. So what are the Dreamlands? maybe I'll show you quickly in the form of a map here. So the Dreamlands, I'll show you this. Maybe you can get this image here for you. So the Dreamlands, here's a map here of the Dreamlands. And if we zoom in on it a little bit, you can see that Lovecraft has a number of the lands of dreams. You can see the Southern Sea, the Cenarian Sea, Daleth-Leen. You can see Ulthor over here. You can see Unknown Kadath. And you can also see in the sky above it. So can you? So roughly speaking, imagine there is not only the dreams, but there are places beyond the dreams. Celephais is the capital dream city. Again, another one of Lovecraft's books of this. So in a dream, this one starts, Kuranes saw the city in the valley and the sea coast beyond and the snowy peak overlooking the sea and the gaily painted galleys that sail out of the harbor toward the distant regions. The sea meets the sky. In a dream, it was also that he came by his name of Kuranes. For when awake, he was called by a different name. Perhaps it was natural for him to dream a new name, for he was the last of his family and alone among the indifferent millions of London. There was not so many to speak of him. So here we have Kuranes, who was born in the waking world, let's call it, and he dreams of the city of Celephais. Kuranes had awakened the very moment he beheld the city, yet he knew from his brief glance that it was none other than Celephais, in the valley of Orthor-Nagai, beyond the Tenarian hills, where his spirit had dwelt all the eternity of an hour one summer afternoon very long ago, when he had slipped away from his nurse and let the warm sea breeze lull him to sleep as he watched the clouds from the cliff of the nearby village. But 3 nights afterwards, Kuranes came again to Celephais. So here we have Celephais, a human, dreaming of a city. And the concept really in this dreamland architecture is Celephais is the almost like the capital city of the Dreamlands, right? This is like this amazing, and it's through his dreaming that Celephais comes into existence. And then at the same time, he, as Kuranes, is sort of the king of this city, which is the grandest city of all the Dreamlands, right? So you can see this kind of dreamy context that starts to get created. And then they also add, of course, to make it complete, just as we forget our dreams, Kuranes in the Dreamlands had forgotten who he was in the waking world, right? So there's this old kind of trope. Has anyone had that kind of dream? Like, leave a comment below if you've had that dream. The dream is where you, in your dream, you realize kind of lucidly that you're dreaming, and you have the choice whether to keep going in the dream or to return to the waking. And sometimes you can't control it, like you're just pulled into the wakefulness. But then imagine the version of that where you sink deeper into the dream. And maybe in the dream you have a dream until the point where you can't remember your way back to the waking. Something like this, right? Maybe even in a weird way, the way those movies like Insidious maybe works, but that's like more of a demonic version of it. But more like the Edgar Allan Poe style living the dream. So Kuranes sought fruitlessly for the marvelous city of Celephais and its galleys that sail to Cenarian in the sky, meanwhile seeing many wonders and once barely escaping from the high priest's not to be described, which wears a yellow silken mask over its face and dwells all alone in the prehistoric stone masonry on the cold desert plateau of Ling. In time, he grew so impatient of the bleak intervals of the day that he began buying chemicals in order to increase his periods of sleep. Hashish had helped a great deal, and it once sent him to a part of space where form does not exist, but where glowing gases study the secrets of existence. The gas had not been heard of planets and organisms before, but identified Kuranes merely as one from the infinity where matter and energy and gravitation exist. Kuranes was now very anxious to return to the minaret-studded Celephais and increase his dosage, but eventually he had no money left and he could not buy any more. Then one summer day he turned out of the garret and wandered aimlessly through the streets. And then he became the knights that come from Celephais to bear him thither forever. And Kuranes reigned thereafter over all the neighboring regions of dreams, and held his court alternately in Celephais in the cloud fashion of dreams. So here we have the main conceit of the Dreamlands. One of many places, in addition to Ulthor, where there's cats, a city of only cats. Actually, if you look at the book by Murakami, Ichiku Hachion, the book features a train ride to this city where there's only cats, right? So that you see shops and everything like that. So it's a very Lovecraftian inspired idea. But then I think we take it into, if we take it into the alchemical courtship of the Dreamlands, in Volume 1, for example, in Aimless, we've got some of these concepts. First off, there's these nocturnes of the Dreamlands that are the quotes at the start of the chapters. So you have, for the old gods had a choice, find new life in the realms of the Dreamlands, or perish as the time of relevance passed for the old religions. For what remains of the gods when their resource of faithful dwindles, as a religion passes out of living practice and into the mythological, or worse, into the forgotten, where some of the mythos survived and lingered longer in the realms of the Dreamlands, others decayed and fell into ruin, bereft of human longing. Still again, some of the gods found a way to regenerate the old ways, recast and reforged by their own immortal will. So they did so by reappropriating their relation to the dreams of all the souls, with the desire to remain in the thoughts of humanity. Only a handful of gods are able to transcend the death of religion and find themselves born again, and most of these seemed to be the trickster gods and gods of love and war, for these were the most resilient to the caprices of time and memory. From the Nocturnes of the Dreamlands, Volume 13. And then we see that this opens up into a circus inside of Celephais. Inside of the city of Celephais, there's an alchemical theater that runs like a circus, a midnight circus that pitches its tents within the Dreamlands, in the eternal space made by the world's dreamers, accessible to those who can extend out past the 11th chakra, the universal gateway, into the great halls at the feet of the dais of unknowable steps leading to the source of the cosmos. On this eternal night after the last show of the evening for the midnight circus, the theater is quiet in the blue light at the end of action. The crowds are gone to bed and the actors off to celebrate, but the ringmaster is awake alone in the empty theater hall. They call him Mr. Merc. So this is a little taste from Aimless. We'll kind of take you through some of the concepts that are translated. Aimless, the alchemical courtship, takes place partly in the Dreamlands of Lovecraft. Let's go into another area of this, Hypnos. Again, Hypnos comes into play as well. Hypnos, as you know from the, I guess this is not technically, I guess it fits in with the Dreamlands. Yeah, I think it's also more about the idea that Hypnos is the god of sleep in the mythologies. Apropos of sleep, that sinister adventure of all our nights, we may say that men go to bed daily with an audacity that would be incomprehensible if we did not know that it is the result of ignorance of the danger. Baudelaire. Right, so here's this sort of idea that we're not simply resting when we sleep, but we're accessing, right? So Hypnos as the god of sleep. The merciless gods, if indeed they be such, guard those hours when no power of the will or drug of that cunning of man devises can keep me from the chasm of sleep. Death is merciful, for there is no return therefrom. But with him who has come back from the nether chambers of night, haggard and knowing, peace rests nevermore. Fool that I was to plunge with such unsanctioned frenzy into mysteries no man was meant to penetrate. Fool or god that he was, my only friend who led me and went before me, and who in the end passed into terrors which may yet be mine. When met, I recall in the railway station, where he was the center of the crowd of the vulgari curious. he was unconscious, having fallen into a kind of convulsion which impaired him on the slight black-clad body of a strange rigidity. I think he was then approaching 40 years of age, sorry. There were deep lines in his face, wan and hollow-cheeked, but oval and actually beautiful, with the touches of the thick waving hair and small full beard. I said to myself with the ardor of a sculptor that this man was a faun of a statuette of Hellas's dug from a temple's ruins. So he meets him, he looks like a Greek statue, right? And then we go into Hypnos as the Lord of Dreams. So, and then we have, so just to kind of parallel across, in the, maybe perhaps in this volume, third volume of the Courtship, we have some encounters with Hypnos as well. First off, let's find this one. The arrival of Hypnos, right? It says, in the Dreamlands, the city of Celephais lay bathed in the ethereal glow of the moon, its spires reaching toward the heavens, casting elongated shadows over its ancient streets. The eternal court of love, once a place of endless revelry in divine union, stood in a solemn interregnum. The halls, usually vibrant with the laughter of songs of poets, now echoed in the silence of anticipation. The citizens of Celephais, aware of the significance of the coming union, stayed within their homes, their hearts and minds filled with the mixture of hope and trepidation. Hypnos, the Red King, the son of Morpheus, prepared for his journey from the temple of Hypnos in ruined Thrawn. As the Lord of Sleep, he was the figure of enigmatic allure, his presence both a comfort and a terror. His eyes, deep in shadow, held the dreams of countless beings, and his aura was one of both seduction and dread. Cloaked in the robes of deep crimson, he exuded an aura of otherworldly power. And where is he going? The Red King is going to his wedding day from the temple of Hypnos. As Hypnos approached Celephais, the city seemed to hold its breath. The court, in a state of interregnum, was a place of uncertainty, and the throne of the White King, the throne of the White Queen, once a symbol of love and unity, now stood empty, waiting for its rightful occupant. So here we have some hints toward roles of Hypnos coming in the saga. Let's go more into some Lovecraft. We have Azathoth here. This is amazing. We all know about Azathoth, right? The great mad god at the center of the sky. But there's just this short piece, just this 3 paragraphs that Lovecraft wrote on Hypnos that I find here. We'll also find some relevance of Hypnos in the coming. So there is some intersection with the Great Old Ones and the dream quest of Lovecraft. So, for example, even we know in let's call the Call of Cthulhu, which is sort of like the flagship of Lovecraftian Great Old Ones. Cthulhu lays sleeping at the bottom of the ocean in sunken R'lyeh, right? And we have Cthulhu sleeping, and yet there we have the dreaming where he is sending into the fleshy mammalian minds, all these, inside the cult of Cthulhu's, in the investigators learning about Cthulhu and the location of sunken R'lyeh throughout that story. There is this sense that the cults around the world are being fueled by Cthulhu sending out some kind of mad communique. And you see here in the beginning speech, it says, in a letter to Frank Belknap Long, Lovecraft quotes the entire fragment, remarking, "The rest will be the material of the Arabian Nights type. It has often been assumed that this tale, in which a man traveled out of his life on a quest for dreams, anticipates the dream quest of unknown Kadath. But that novel, Randolph Carter discovers the Salt Forest Sunset City, is not the dream world, but in his memories of his actual boyhood." So again, spoilers, there's a sort of inverse relationship that happens in the Dreamlands. Sort of like the inverse relationship that also gets explored in the Aimless and Stubborn Venting's saga, that not only is there a relationship between the waking and the dreaming, but there's an inverse relationship between the dreaming and the awakening. So some of those politics of that. And I want to say that we also have Azathoth here. It says, when age fell upon the world and wonder went out of the minds of men, when gray cities reared to smoky skies, tall over the grim and ugly, in whose shadow none might dream of the sun or the spring's flowering meads, when learning stripped earth of her mantle of beauty, and poets sang no more save of twisted phantoms seen with blemished and inward-looking eyes. When those things had come to pass, and childish hopes had gone away forever, there was a man who traveled out of life on a quest into the space whither the world's dreams had fled. And of that name and abode of this man but little is written, for they were of the waking world only. Yet it is said that both were obscure. It is enough to know that he dwelt in a city of high walls, where sterile twilight reigned. And he toiled all day among shadow and turmoil, coming home at evening to a room where his one window opened not into the fields and groves, but onto the dim court where other windows stared in dull despair. For the casement might see only walls and windows, except sometimes when one learned far out and peered aloft in the small stars that passed, and because mere walls and windows must soon drive to madness a man whose dream and reads much. The dweller in that rooms used night after night to lean out and peer aloft in glimpse of some fragment of things beyond the waking world. And it's this glimpse into the void, into the vortexes, where we start to get that archaeology of what Azathoth is. So Azathoth is sort of like the furthest distance. It's the mad, great old one. And it starts to build out that Lovecraftian cosmology. But as he says, this hope, we have the second volume of The Alchemical Courtier of the Dreamlands, Hope's Home and Hysteria's Heart. We sort of extend that retro-causal concept. In this opening chapter, the quoted chapters, you may be familiar from the writing of Jung, that he has his red book and his black books, right? Well, just as Kuranes can live beyond the waking in the dreamland, so too can all of us escape to the dreamland. It's sort of the conceit, kind of the concept. But here we say in Celephais, the capital city of the realms of the dreamlands, Jung's spirit continued its life after his death. The ethereal architecture of Celephais, a city built on the dreams of countless souls, provided a fitting backdrop for Jung's continued exploration of the unconscious. He embarked on his most ambitious work, the writing of the 666 volumes of the Grey Books. These tomes, woven from the very fabric of dream stuff, encapsulated his profound psychoanalytic insights gleaned from patients from across the realms of the dreamlands. In the dreamlands, Jung found a landscape unbound by the limitations of the waking world, where the collective unconscious could be directly observed and interacted with. Having moved beyond the exploration of the alchemical dreams and ancient thought systems of his time in the earth waking, Jung now contemplated the voyage of the unending, a journey of spiritual and psychological significance. To undertake this profound quest, he sought the guidance of King Kuranes himself, the dreamer who had founded the city of Celephais through the sheer force of his will and imagination. Jung's earlier works, his 7 volumes of notes on dreaming, known in the Black Books, were a mere prelude to the monumental task he undertook at Celephais. These Grey Books, each volume a testament to his tireless inquiry into the depths of the human psyche, were more appropriately named. They represented a synthesis of his earthly knowledge and the transcendent wisdom accessible in the dreamlands. Written from the practice in Celephais, these volumes encompass not just the clinical observation of a psychoanalyst, but the spiritual revelations of a soul unshackled by mortal constraints. Thus, in the Dreamlands, Jung's Grey Books stood as a bridge between worlds, a comprehensive exploration of the human condition as seen through the lens of dreams. They offered a roadmap for those willing to traverse the shadowed corridors of the mind, guided by the enduring spirit of a man who sought to illuminate the darkest reaches of the soul. From the Grey Books of Celephais, C.G. Jung, Volume 1, an introduction by Rudolf Steiner. So we have the concept of the Dreamlands. We have the concept of sort of a dissociation between the waking world. The madness of Azathoth comes into play. let's continue. Now we're in the dream quest of unknown Kadath. And here we also have some concepts from Kadath. So we have Randolph Carter walked with dignity through that enchanted phosphorus wood of Titan trees. Fantastic gambols and chased fallen leaves that the wind drives among the fungi of primeval floor. And the old cat said that he had heard much of unknown Kadath in the cold waste, but he did not know where it was. And for the marvelous sunset he had not heard that, but would gladly relay to Carter anything he might learn later. He gave the seeker some passwords of great value among the cats of the dreamland, and commended him especially to the old chief of the cats in Celephais, whether he was bound. That old cat, already known to Carter, was a dignified Maltese and would prove highly influential in any transaction. It was dawn when it came to the proper edge of the wood, and Carter bade his friends a reluctant farewell. So Carter set out for the Cenarian Sea, and he makes his way to Thron. Thron, it says, toward the evening he mounted a low grass rise and saw before him flaming in the sunset the 1,000 gilded spires of Thron. And on the way to Thron, there's sort of a desert. There's a desert on the way to Thron. So here we have a very imaginative Randolph Carter, moving through the architectures of the Dreamlands. I have here, let's see this. And sort of, how does this sort of fit in a cosmology, I guess is the way. So we have Randolph Carter inspired to travel the Dreamlands. It says, Hermes, the Archon, the Aeons, and the Archons, long before the Dreamlands formed out of the unending, by those whose dreams sought to architect a realm. Again, we're going from the Alchemical Courtship of the Dreamlands, Volume 1, Aimless, Aim Vicious. Long before the Dreamlands formed out of the unending, by those whose dreams sought to architect a realm of lands where hopes of all could find home, long still before Kuranes dreamed Celephais as the capital city of the Dreamlands, the Archons sought realms of their own. It was then that the Agape, who ruled love, formed the first of the courts of love. And the first of those was the angelic court to express the love for God. Since that time, the earthly courts of love have had their parallel in the heavenly courts. Only later, when the dream lords of Celephais rose to rule the realms in distinction, and at time in opposition to the whims of gods and archons, did the eternal court of love establish a queen of the courts of love, with a human form in the waking, gifted with the power of dream in service of that agape. The queen often found that not only was she the line that sought to transform human hearts with her trails and judgments on love, but that line that defended human love from those archonic forces which sought love's ruins, those archons in allegiance to that mad demiurge who sought to subjugate humankind. This is from another text called From the Nocturnes of the Dreamlands, Volume 13. From the gates of the realms, the white ship would soon set sail to fly them to the Dreamlands realms. The night circus performed each night in the dreaming city of Celephais. Act after act performed spectacles for the dreamers under the big tent. As a circus, he was known as the ringmaster, Mr. Merck. It was his circus, and he had found the place to explore and contribute to the endless dreams of the patrons from Celephais. And when the show was over each night, he would retreat to his salon to contemplate, to reflect. But he had also been the ringleader. But instead, he had been known in the past as the messenger and even as the psychopomp, the bringer of dreams who had transported the souls to Hades. So here we have some insights into the Gnostic nature of our dream cycle. So that was from Aimless. Let's go back to Lovecraft and look through more of the unknown Kadath. Oh, one of those cities that come here, as we talked about, was Celephais. You can see how he weaves this through many works. So we had Celephais mentioned in 2 or 3 of the tales. So this is why it's that dream quest. The old chief of the cats also told him where to find his friend, King Kuranes, who in Carter's later dreams had reigned alternatively in the rose crystal palace of the 70 delights at Celephais, and the turreted cloud castle of sky-floating Cenarion. So we see some loose architecture. You know, there's some architecture that happens here. There's some architecture, there's some locations that get referenced, right? And also the intermixing between Celephais. The cats are telling Carter about this. The city sits at the feet of the Tenarian hills. And not only is there Celephais, but there is also Daleth-Leen is another city that comes out. It seemed that the merchants had caused the former captured by slaves of the moon things in Daleth-Leen, and that he now meant to do what was rescuing cats had baffled, taking the victim to some dread rendezvous with monstrous Nyarlathotep, and telling what boldness the seeking of unknown Kadath had been tried, laying in the cold waste of North Inganuk, must be close to the outer gods, and there past Kadath are well guarded. And this, so this is sort of introducing these otherworldly cities, right? So we have, again, now in the second book, we have Will's voyage to Daleth-Leen. This is in Hope's Home, Hysteria's Heart. This is volume 2. This will probably come out in the spring of next year. Aimless will come out first. So we'll be, if you go over to our Patreon, we can, I'll share some of this information on what the publishing schedule looks like. I'll also share some artwork and some chapter excerpts. Let me know if you guys are interested down in the comments. I can do more of a deep dive into these. But Will's first voyage to Daleth-Leen, the journey to the city of Celephais, a city of argent spires and eternal twilight, where dreams intertwined with the reality and the elegant ball of color. In Celephais, now here's a little bit of some exploration, expanding upon, some meditations expanding upon Lovecraft's world. So, as we mentioned before, there's a difference between, in the waking, we move toward the dreaming. But in the dreaming, what is our relation back to the waking? Well, it's different by different cities in the waking. So in Celephais, the philosophy towards the waking was one of compassion and reverence. The inhabitants viewed the dreamers of the waking as a source of the dreamlands. Most advanced lands, a perspective rooted in the legacy of King Kuranes, once a dreamer from Cornwall. The city celebrated the waking as the birthplace of its profound visions, recognizing the interconnectedness of all realms. The dreamers who arrived from the waking were seen as artists, whose restless minds sculpted the grandeur of Celephais' spires, with desire fueled the magic that sustained its beauty. The belief that the waking brought new lifeblood to the dreamlands, infusing it with creativity and vitality. So the departure from Celephais was marked by the sense of melancholy and anticipation. And the white ship, a vessel of ivory and moonlight, was a traditional passage between the realms, and Will's destination was to Daleth-Leen, a city whispered in hushed tones. So as he's approaching Daleth-Leen, we get the philosophy toward Daleth-Leen is a bit different. So where Celephais was a symbol of slender argent spires and delicate arches, Daleth-Leen was a fortress of cyclopean blocks and iron towers that jutted skyward with its iron dome city. In Daleth-Leen, the philosophy toward the waking was one of disdain and caution. The inhabitants of the waking were seen as the curse of meat and matter, a weight that dragged down the buoyancy of the dreamlands. They viewed the waking as a realm that confounded the loftiness of their dreams, encouraging nightmares to keep the dreamers restless and the confined to the vestibules, unable to fully integrate more exalted realms. This perspective permeated every aspect of Daleth-Leen's society, from its rigid hierarchies to its darkly enchanting architecture. The citizens believed that by distancing themselves from the waking, they could maintain the purity of their dreams and protect their city from the taint of reality. But in the contrast, the floating city of Cenarion, which we referenced before in Celephais, that Kuranes split his time between the city of Celephais and the floating city of Cenarion. In the floating city of Cenarion, which Will had visited past in his dreams, hovered above the dreamlands like a vision of ethereal perfection. The philosophy of Cenarion was one of separatism. The inhabitants sought to disconnect from the waking entirely, seeing it as an anchor that prevented them from fully realizing their ethereal potential. So where the dreamers of Celephais celebrated the waking, the dreamers of Daleth-Leen saw it as a curse, and they sort of roiled in that obsession. They mine the iron of Daleth-Leen back through the waking. And then Cenarians are separatists. They seek to cut from the waking. And it's mirrored in their beliefs that their city is floating, embodying the most dreamlike, unimaginable aspects of the Dreamlands, a realm untouched by the crude realities of the waking world. Cenarian was a sanctuary for those who desired to live in a state of perpetual dream, free from the burdens of physical existence. So there is a little bit of that. The introduction of Daleth-Leen into the picture. And then going into the end of the quest of unknown Cadathia, there's just a paragraph I thought was interesting. It says, thick through the rushing nightmare that clutched his senses, Randolph Carter could turn and move. He could move, and if he chose, he could leap off the evil shantak that bore him hurtlingly downward at the orders of Nyarlathotep. He could leap off and dare those depths of night that yawned interminably down, those depths of fear whose terror could not yet exceed the nameless doom that lurked, waiting at chaos's core. He could turn and move and leap. He could, he would. Off that vast hypocephalic abomination he leaped, the doom and desperate dreamer, and down through endless voids of sentient blackness he fell. Aeons reeled, universes died, and were born again. Stars became nebulae, and nebulae became stars, and Randolph Carter fell through the endless void of sentient blackness. Then in the slow, creeping course of eternity, the utmost cycle of the cosmos churned itself to another futile completion, and all things became again as they were unreckoned culpas before. Matter and light were born anew as space once was known to them. Comets and suns and worlds sprang flamingly into life, though nothing survived to tell what they had been through, been and gone, always and always back to no first beginning. So here we have him return to his room in Boston, awake. And I think we can sort of show some resonance to this in our I think perhaps we can talk about the lore of Hypnos, or perhaps we can look at this one. So we're talking about descent into the darkness. So this is again from the volume 2, Hope's Home, Hysteria's Heart, Will's Revelation of Saturn. We see this quote from Jung's study of the lost text of the Cypria. We have this introductory quote translated below. It says, beneath the celestial vault where chaos's children tread, Zeus sovereign, his dominion widespread, convened the pantheon in Olympus's shadowed hall, decreed Hephaestus's hand to forge the chains, enthrall Kronos, titan of time, his tyranny now ended, into Tartarus depths, by blackest night attended, Hephaestus as his anvil, where fire meets fate's design. With Cyclops, those artisans of craft divine, wielded hammer and tongs and the earth's heart confined, forged links of adamantine, through arcane arts refined. Each chain, imbued with spells, the Titans might bind, a testament to Olympian's decree intertwined. And so was Cronus led past Styx' whispering flow to Tartarus, where no gleam of sun nor moonlight show. Around his forms the chains like serpents rightly wound, a king dethroned in darkness profound. Yet as his eyes met Zeus, a prophecy he did bestow. Lo, as I fell to thee, from thee too shall power go. This cycle unbroken from Uranus' fall to mine portends thine own eclipse, a lineage's decline. For power once seized breeds but envy and spite, and from thy seed shall arise another to challenge thy right. These words, like seed sown in the fertile ground of night, foreshadowed an eternal struggle, power's plight for the realm of gods, as amongst mortal kin the wheels of fortune turns from without and within. So here we have a story of the binding of Kronos, which is Kronos being Saturn and Saturnine sort of themes coming out of the Daleth-Leen story. I mean, if we go a little bit into the chapter, it said, Will stood among the grandiose entrance of the iron library of Daleth-Leen. Its towering iron gates etched with ancient glyphs and arcane symbols, the weight of the library's knowledge pressed down upon him, a palpable force that filled him with both awe and trepidation. The iron library, a place of legend, the repository of collective wisdom and the folly of countless civilizations. And as he stepped inside, the air grew cooler. When he closed the book, his mind racing with thoughts and reflections, the iron library had granted him a glimpse into the profound wisdom of the ancients, and he felt a sense of purpose and determination. So here we have the iron library is beneath the pantheon of Daleth-Leen. You can kind of see that idea of the Daleth-Leen's architecture here. This is Daleth-Leen. The cover of this one is Celephais. Okay, so let's go lastly into our last Lovecraft quotes. We could look at obviously we have the history of the Necronomicon, not so much a part of the Dreamlands here. And back to the table of contents here. There was the white ship. Again, the white ship is that which transports them from the cities to the other cities. And I feel that I think the dream quest of unknown Kadath really is the sort of center space of this. You see, the dream quest of lost Kadath is where Carter sails out of Daleth-Leen early one morning when the tide turned and saw the rays of sunrise on the thin angular towns in that dismal basalt town. For 2 days he sailed eastward in the green coasts. On the 5th day the sailors were nervous. That night the moon was bright, and one could see the great way down into the water. There was so little wind that the ship could not move much. So again, these are flying ships, like the ships flying over the oceans. And then the suburbs appeared, finally the lone hills, and Carter's making his way through to unknown Kadath. That is his final destination. I've got another one. So again, we talked about Hypnos, we talked about Ulthor, we talked about Celephais, talked a little bit about the idea of the archaeology or the anthropology of the different cities, the lore of Hypnos and the Temple of Daleth-Leen. At the dawn of the Dreamlands, Daleth-Leen was already ancient, born from the primal dreams of the first primitive humans emerging from the depths of history. Their views on the waking were often disparagingly rooted in a disdain for its transient nature and the ephemeral concerns. Obsessed with iron and bound by a Saturnine cult, they practiced rites and rituals that predated the arrival of Hypnos, long before his somnambulate dominion. The pyramids of onyx, remnants of the cultists of Nyarlathotep, stood as forgotten nightmares, their once terrifying legacy erased from mortal memory. The Malus Insomniarum, the hammer of nightmares. Hypnos, the solemnant son of Morpheus, was a deity wrapped in mystery and shadow. His origins were as ancient as the dreams that birthed him, and its essence as ephemeral as the wisps of sleep. In the Dreamlands, Hypnos wielded a power that few could comprehend, a power that extended beyond the realms of mere mortals and into the dark recesses of forgotten lore. His influence seeped into the dreams of gods and men alike, a silent whisper in the night, luring them to the labyrinth of their subconscious fears and desires. His presence was a paradox of serenity and terror, a lullaby that could soothe or ensnare. Daleth-Leen, the city of iron and shadow, was older than the celestial spires of Celephais. It was a relic from the Iron Age, a time when the waking world was rife with savage gods and wicked demons, Long before King Kuranes dreamed of Celephais, the miners of the waking had toiled beneath the oppressive sky of Daleth-Leen, their labor dedicated to the worship of strange and long-forgotten deities. These miners, with their soot-streaked faces and weary eyes, were the lifeblood of the city, their chants to the old gods a haunting echo from the underground tunnels. The air was thick with the sense of iron and blood, a testament to the sacrifices made in the name of deities whose names had been erased from mortal memory. Hypnos had come to Daleth-Leen during those turbulent times, when humanity's fervent belief in gods and demons had shaped the very fabric of reality. The cults of Saturn were widespread among the miners, their rituals dark and foreboding, echoing through the labyrinthine corridors of the city. The cults were only fragments of the twisted worship that had permeated Daleth-Leen. Okay, so that's a little introduction to Lovecraft's dream cycle, little introduction to a derivative work expanding on this, making up the 3 volumes of the first 3 volumes. It's actually a 8 volume projected series. We've got the book 1, 2, and 3 with the covers of Celephais, Daleth-Leen, and actually this is the Temple of Hypnos in Thrawn, with various cultists and activities from those. We've dived into Lovecraft. Just so you know, so I've got a number of podcasts we'll come up with. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to do some more deep dives into these Lovecraftian topics, or if you want to see more on the new books. You can check out the Patreon. I'll post some things on the Patreon in the next few days around information from these books, maybe some excerpts of the chapters. You can also go check out our bookstore down below to help support the podcast. Like I mentioned, I'll probably be moving to Rumble, I guess, because I don't know what's going on with YouTube, but it seems like my channels are under some kind of attack, and you can tell my channels are not any kind of content that isn't safe. It's all world building, and my other channel is painting miniatures and board games, so very, very tame stuff. Not sure what they're doing over there. But if you check out our bookstore, it helps to keep us afloat here. August Moldenhauer's Archaeology of Yog-Sothoth, Giuseppe Balsamo's Necromancy of Nyarlathotep, August Moldenhauer's Genealogy of Cthulhu. Those are all collected in a volume that we've got out there called the Catu Journals out of Lovecraft Providence. Check those out, all from Pontos Fathom Press. We've also got William Mitchell's Alchemy and Anthroposophy in the Dune Saga, the Esoteric Dragon Mysteries, Decoding the Dragon symbol in myth and occult traditions. And then lastly, we've recently published the Artificial Psychoanalysis of Desiring Machines. This is a deep dive into main topics from the Artificial Psychology of Desiring Machines. The 3 books collected in this series are Impedance and Admittance in Desiring Machines, The Psychoanalysis of Artificial Intelligence, which really is a film study, seeing film as artificial memory, Bergson, HAL 9000, The Terminator, Cylons, Deleuze, Replicants, Deleuze image, time image, the synthetics of Alien, Pinocchio, Artificial Intelligence by Spielberg and et al. And then lastly is the Computational Complexity and Psychiatric Agency. So we have the tour is really through the relation between automation and human automaton, right? So artificial intelligence versus human automaton. Are we becoming more artificial, or are we becoming a blend of some sort? The deep dive into those, film as artificial memory and internet as also as an artificial kind of memory. And then finally into computational complexity, into psychiatric agency. It's really a deep dive into some of the potentialities to what is the limits of this calculations that will be happening in the future of artificial intelligence. So check those out. They're all in the bookstore link below. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully be back to posting a little bit more frequently. It's been kind of hectic here with the channel takedowns and things like that. So be sure to go visit us on our Rumble site. Go check out our website, pontosfathom.com, so we can stay connected. I will leave this channel as long as YouTube lets it channel. It said it was unsafe for the community. I don't know if there's anything unsafe that I've said on this channel, so not sure what's going on with that, but there may be just the general tenor of things that are strange going on out in the YouTube world. So even I have been drawn into it, and frankly, I don't want to deal with it. So, but thank you guys for all of your encouraging words in the comments below. I'm going to do something a little bit different right now, just a quick teaser into some ideas I have on how this could work. I'm going to do a quick excerpt. You'll see the presentation of it, but it's an excerpt from Hope's Home, Hysteria's Heart. It's about the Crimson Princess of Daleth-Leen and some insights into Saturn. If you guys want to listen to that, check it out, and then I'll see you at the end of the clip on the other side. So a little experiment here. Let's see how it goes.
The Dreamlands. Once a realm of unbroken reverie and ethereal wonder lay now in a state of fragile peace. A peace tenuous as the thread spun by the fates. For though the immediate horrors had passed and the forces of chaos had been pushed back into the depths from whence they came, this reprieve was but a fleeting breath, a brief interlude in the endless cycles of cosmic struggle. The crimson-lit halls of Daleth-Leen, silent now, but for the faint echoes of battles waged and won, trembled with the weight of what had been lost and what had yet to be discovered. The Crimson Princess, standing alone within the sacred and ancient pantheon, her form bathed in the dim glow of dying stars, felt the weight of this vast new chapter pressing upon her shoulders. A chapter not inscribed by gods, but by her own hands, for though the Dreamlands had been momentarily saved, the deep underlying currents of reality churned ever onward, restless and insatiable, waiting for the inevitable return of darkness. She knew with a certainty, as old as the stones beneath her feet, that the battle had merely delayed the rising tides. For time itself, like the turning of a great wheel, would bring new dangers to the fore, new forces of disorder to challenge the delicate balance she had fought so tirelessly to protect. As the hosts of war, the last remnants of both mortal and divine armies, began to recede like the dissipating mist beneath the cold iron sky. That sky once burned with the fires of battle, the Crimson Princess, once the embodiment of fiery wrath and ferocity, a warrior queen whose name struck terror into the hearts of her enemies, now transformed, elevated into something far more profound, an embodiment of cosmic rebirth, walked hand in hand with Saturn, the unchained titan, through the war-ravaged streets of Daleth-Leen. Beneath their feet, the ground, still slick with the blood of both dreamers and nightmare-born creatures, pulsed with a rhythm not unlike the beating of a great heart. A heart newly healed yet forever scarred, as their steps echoed in the eerie stillness. A silence that carried with it the weight of the future. Uncertain, heavy, and dark. Together they moved, side by side, with purpose and solemnity beneath the towering iron domes. Monuments that once stood as testaments to power and destruction, now repurposed in the wake of the conflict, transformed into symbols of rebirth and the fragile hope that followed. Each step they took, each deliberate movement, seemed part of a ritual, a silent sacred passage, a walk between worlds, between war and peace, between what had been and what was yet to come. She had invited him here, to this place of blood and iron, not as a conqueror demanding his due, but as an ally, a sovereign offering sanctuary, bestowing upon him a seat of honor, a place among the gods, in the very heart of her realm. Daleth-Leen, once feared across the Dreamlands, known for its raw, untempered power, its history drenched in the blood of those who sought to destroy it, would now become a refuge, a sanctuary, for Saturn, the Titan unchained, whose long and tortured journey had taken him from the depths of imprisonment beneath Mu, where he had languished in chains forged by the gods themselves, to the soaring heights of sovereignty within the Dreamlands. No longer bound by his cosmic past, a past of punishment and imprisonment, Saturn found in this city a reflection of his own rebirth, his own transformation, an eternal force now unshackled, free to wield his immense power, not for judgment alone, but for something far greater, a purpose transcending mere vengeance. Here, within the hallowed halls of the Temple of Iron and Blood, this sanctuary of forgotten gods and primal forces, he would reign not as a prisoner of fate, but as a protector, a judge and a ruler, whose power now stood as both a blessing and a warning to those who might seek to disrupt the fragile peace they had all fought to secure.
You can go check out our Patreon if you'd like to support us. I will be publishing some more information about this series of books. I'll also publish the artwork. The fourth book is being written as we speak. The first book is being edited for final publishing, and Hope's Home will follow probably by spring, and Stubborn Devotions is sort of in a advanced draft form that'll probably come out in the summer of next year. So got a busy schedule. If you liked what we did today, leave a comment below. I am thinking of putting up some shorts that just read through some of these paragraphs. So maybe if you guys are subscribed, you can listen to those and give me some feedback on what you think of the book style. And any other general comments, reach out to me here on the Patreon. Thanks a lot, guys, for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.